hot off the press today from Autocar was news that Volvo were going to launch their EX60 SUV with 503 miles of range and rapid charging at 400 kilowatts, which will give it 211 miles of range in 10 minutes, which is unbelievable. And this is hot off the heels of BMW announcing their iX3 with 500 miles of range. Can't remember the rapid charging speed, but undoubtedly it'd be pretty high up there. Tesla refreshed the batteries in the Model 3, so the longest range, the Model 3 rear-wheel drive, long range, has got 466 miles of range, and the new Mercedes CLA, the entry version of that, has 480 miles of range. So, you know, in a very small window of time, EVs have suddenly become these 400-mile range cars. And it's not that long ago that 300 miles was the benchmark. So when I bought my Tesla Model 3 long-range dual motor back in 2021, that was like surpassing the benchmark at around about 350 miles of WLTP range. And it consistently got over 300 miles, so it's a pretty accurate figure. Now, my current one, which is the long-range rear-wheel drive with the previous battery pack, is good for 400 miles of range on the large wheels, or I think it was around 420 or 430 miles. 426 sounds about right on the smaller wheels. So just in that short amount of time, there's been this big leap in perhaps improvements with efficiency, battery energy density, and packs getting bigger in the same, or I say packs getting bigger, but the capacity is getting greater, but in the same size pack. And remember back with the Nissan Leaf, we went from a 24 kilowatt hour to a 30 kilowatt hour, then to a 40 kilowatt hour, and then a 62 kilowatt hour, you know, all in that same space. So, you know, the likes of Hyundai with their Ioniq 6 that wasn't launched that long ago, and it had a really good 330 miles of range at launch, now seems quite obsolete. And I know that they've got a newer version on the way with a larger battery pack and probably efficiency improvements and lots of other updates. And it'd be really interesting to see what that launches with, because we're now getting to that point where, you know, EVs are becoming very credible choices for consumers that would demand a lot of range, and they could be reps that are traversing the country and are on tight time schedules. I know people need to stop and have a break. They should always do that, but I've had a lot of feedback when I put posts out and people are showing an interest in the car and asking what the real world range is for their particular situation, for their lifestyle, for whatever it is, their job. It wasn't quite hitting that mark that they needed it to. And I think now, just like a year or two later, after I was getting kind of these comments, they're actually hitting that mark now. People their ears are being pricked up with this. And I had one comment on social media, I think it's from a taxi driver, about that Volvo battery. Will they put that in the new LEVC taxi? Wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't that be awesome? A 500-mile range black cab, effectively, which is all electric. So currently they've got the, I think they're range extender ones, and I'm not sure what the all-electric range is. I think it's around 70 or 80 miles, but I could be wrong. So what's absolutely fascinating with this, though, is it's pricking people's ears up. And I know that for EV drivers that have been driving EVs for years, we know that we don't need that. But really, for electric cars to appeal to more people, we really need to kind of appeal to the mindset almost. So, you know, the mindset of a lot of people is, I need to fill up a tank of petrol once a week or once a fortnight. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to do that, and they should always do their own research whether they actually need that. But there are people that will need that, and there are a couple of circumstances, like the taxi drivers, for example, people that are repping up and down the country. And this technology going into vans as well would be a game changer for workforces and so on and so forth. But electric van take up is slower than car because there are range limitations and perhaps payload limitations as well. I'm not a van expert. I don't know. I've never owned a van. But when you're kind of talking about people that are don't have a driveway, don't have off-road parking, they can't have a home charger, for example. This is another solution. I know there are solutions out there like cross-pavement cable charging, but if you can't park outside your house, that doesn't help you. So you have to look at all the various solutions that come out, and a bigger battery pack would be a good solution for some people. Say, for example, they could buy a Fiesta-sized car. Currently, that you're probably not going to get more than 250 miles of range out of a small runabout like that. I'm thinking like Renault 5, but in reality, it's going to be less than that. But what if that was like a 350, 400 miles range, and people just needed to stick it on the charge once a week while they're at the supermarket, or charge it once a week at work, or find the cheaper charger on their way somewhere and whatever. These things will help people adopt EVs. Part of it is mindset, part of it is necessity. It's absolutely incredible to see this, but where will it stop? This is insane when you think about it. 500-mile range EVs in the real world, well over 400 miles. Okay, so even in the depths of winter, you can't go that far in the car without needing to stop for facilities. You really can't, especially when you're my age. But the reality of it is normalizing, isn't it? It's normalizing EVs versus combustion cars. And when you get to that point where they are normal, well, okay, so this car does 400 or 500 miles. My old petrol or diesel does 400 miles. And it's like the whole mentality thing shifts around it. It's like, okay, that's viable, because I go on holiday in the UK myself, and it's beneficial to have a rangy EV. Most of the time, we usually rent somewhere that's got a charger. Sometimes we don't. But having a decent amount of capacity is great. It's not inconvenient in any way to go on holiday in my car. But for larger families looking for SUVs, wow, 500-mile range cars. Even if it's only doing 400 on a motorway, that's still an epic distance you're going to get. And this is only going to get better with time as more chargers are installed nationwide. I know the prices have got to come down, and there are rapid charging companies that are doing that. Tesla, prices are low. BEV, they've got really good prices, low prices on their rapid chargers. There are companies out there that are really forging a way to try and enable people to get fast charging at really reasonable prices. So when you have that combination, when you have low public charging costs or reasonable public charging costs and really rangy electric cars, my God, this is gonna absolutely take off. If you can say to someone, here's a Fiesta-sized car with 350 miles of range, that's what they're getting out of petrol. I know that because my wife used to have a little Mazda, and you'd fill it up with petrol and it would do about 350 miles. If you were driving like a nun, maybe you might, peak 400, but 350 was pretty normal. And if you can get a small size electric car that will do that, I mean, again, complete game changer. All of this, of course, is coming. There is a counter argument that we shouldn't be using resources just to give people additional range, and they should just rely on the charging network, because most of the time people don't need that range. But I think if it shifts mindset, if it gets to that point where we have to go through this phase of large battery packs, and then kind of reduce that over time because people aren't needing it, it's not necessary, then I think that's a worthwhile cause, because invariably these batteries won't go in landfill. They will last a long time. They'll have like an incredible long shelf life, given the charge cycles and given the capacity. So, you know, there's kind of like, this is a turning point, I think, and at the time where we're seeing more EVs reaching price parity, this is a turning point. I think 2026 is going to be like a mindset shift for a lot of people, and I think people are going to think that's a viable product now, and I can afford it. So I think this is great news. I really do. I know people don't think the same way. That's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. If you buy an EV and you don't need that range, then buy one with a smaller battery pack in it. You know, it's. But if you know, if like me, you're holidaying in the UK and you got dogs or kids or luggage or whatever, and you're schlepping down to Cornwall or up to the Lake District or Scotland or Wales or Norfolk, or, you know, I've been to all of these places for holidays. It's fantastic. It's a car. You just drive it. You stop because you need a rest, you need something to eat, you need to use the facilities. Your car's charging up at the same time. It's perfect for us. Anyway, that was it. Thanks very much, and see you on the next one.